Monster Hunter Wilds has a ton of depth, and while there is a lot to learn, mastering the game's more advanced mechanics will really help you in the more challenging hunts. So I've gathered my best tips and tricks, like amazing uses for your Slinger and how to make your Palico companion even better to help you to the endgame and beyond. A big part of your success is making sure you prep the right meal before going on a hunt, and there is one in particular that I'd recommend using as often as possible. Because when cooking a meal with Eastern honey, you improve the effectiveness of healing items for the duration of the meal buff, which is a full 50 minutes. And this ingredient is pretty easy to find, as it simply requires you to catch a giant vigor wasp with your capture net. So use the item filter and the environment overview to look for them and simply shoot the net to gather the resource. You can also improve your experience a lot by simply checking out the game's menu. There are some useful features that are pretty well hidden, including some nice visual changes on the third page of game settings. You can choose to hide your head armor if you're particularly proud of what you made during character creation, but more useful is changing your obscured hunter visibility. By default, if you are covered by a monster, you'll see a silhouette outlined in white so you can keep track of your character, but you can change the color of this outline to black, yellow, red or blue to make it pop a bit more, making it even easier to keep track of your hunter. And while it is up to you, I highly recommend selecting the feline voices for your Palico, otherwise your little companion will be very talkative during hunts. With feline voices on, your Palico will only make cat noises, but you still see the useful information it relays to you in the subtitles, so you are not missing those. If you want to speed up your monster farming, or if you're facing a particularly difficult foe, don't forget about your monster field guide. This displays all kinds of useful information on a creature, such as its elemental weaknesses, resistance to different status effects, and which materials drop from which part of the monster. Even if you don't have a matching weapon type, you can look for different types of Slinger ammo to exploit these types of weaknesses. In general, you always want to keep your Slinger stocked, as there are many useful interactions you can trigger with a Slinger shot. Some creatures, like the worm-like Balahara, will climb structures, but can be easily knocked down by firing a Slinger shot at them. There are also monsters like mhwilds who have a grab attack, and you can escape their hold by mashing triangle or Y fast enough to poke them with your knife, but if you have some ammo left in your Slinger, you can also fire a burst into the creature's face to immediately free yourself. Elemental Slinger ammo also takes on an entirely new level in areas where you start running into these coral-like structures in the environment. Hitting one of these with any type of elemental Slinger ammo triggers a detonation of the same type, and if this explosion hits another piece of coral, it triggers a chain detonation. So if you use these to deal damage that exploits a monster's elemental weakness, you can get some really impressive results. Now, some of the most dangerous creatures you'll encounter are the various region's apex predators, but each one also has a specific counter that can make parts of the fight much easier. Raydow's nest is full of electric energy on the ground, which triggers aftershocks when the monster hits it with lightning. But there is a pile of grounding pods for your Slinger lying in the arena as well, and by firing these at the ground, you remove the pools of lightning. You can even create a second batch of pods by dropping the grounding pillar hanging above the arena, ideally on Ray's head of course, for some massive damage. For Undutha, its most dangerous attack is a massive wave that it only performs in its lair. It will leave the arena and jump into the water, but there are two massive ruins that hang over it that you can target with your Slinger. Once you're connected, pressing circle or B will bring the ruins crashing down, and if you hit the monster, you will cancel the tidal wave attack and bring it crashing back to shore. The creepy mhwilds is especially dangerous once it lights itself on fire, but dealing enough water damage will actually douse the flames and leave him open to attack for a little bit. So bring weapons with elements of that type, or alternatively shoot him with water moss, which can be found in zone 14 of the map. Finally, the massive Jin Dahad will trigger a massive energy wave near the end of its fight. Once it starts channeling this, look for these ice formations above you and pull one down with your Slinger. You can use these giant slabs of ice to avoid all damage, and it even gives you the time to sharpen your weapon if you need to. Now, sometimes when fighting a monster, you'll notice that a creature will drop something in the middle of a fight. These are special heavy types of Slinger ammo that are all very powerful. I'm not 100% sure on the conditions, but my theory is that dealing large amounts of damage to specific parts causes this to happen, and it also determines which type of pod. So if you deal enough damage to the wings of a Rathalos, you get a heavy slicing pod. If you do the same to the ridged back of an Ajarakan, it will drop a heavy blunt pod. The latter are especially useful, as a shot to the head with one of these immediately knocks a monster to the ground. around. There are even more types of heavy ammo that can spawn, so make sure to watch if anything drops from a monster and always pick it up. And if you're really having trouble, did you know you can also use an SOS flare while playing in offline mode? I got that and way more tips for you, and of course if you liked the video so far, leave a like and subscribe for more Monster Hunter Wilds. So if you want to make use of this squad of AI hunters, you want to go to the post quest menu, then settings, and then set multiplayer settings to support hunters only. They will replace your Bellico, but these 3 hunters will be able to support you in various ways as well. They can heal you, place traps, or even follow your lead by placing some extra bombs next to a sleeping monster as you are setting up yours. The game still counts you as the only hunter in the squad at hunt completion, meaning you don't have to split money between the other hunters and every penny goes to your wallet. So if you find yourself struggling in solo play, this squad of AI buddies can actually be really helpful. However, later in the game you'll be able to start a quest chain to earn new abilities for your Bellico, which I'd argue make him more useful than the AI squad. He's always waiting close to your tent, so simply check in every time the side quest icon appears over his head to expand his arsenal of skills. Especially the addition of the Plunderang, a gadget the Bellico throws out to gather extra materials for you, and the Vigor Wasp revival you get as the final unlock really make your feline companion a force to be reckoned with. You can of course also pick its equipment, making sure their resistances and damage types line up with the monster you want to hunt. So while this AI support squad can be very helpful, a fully boosted Bellico is more versatile and better at supporting you. When looking at your own equipment, there are a couple of things you need to take into account. Every armor set has a set bonus that triggers when equipping a certain number of armor pieces from that set, and these are often very useful skills. However, the singular items you can craft from some of the smaller creatures, like the Chronodath mail or the Komachi accessory, also have a set perk, even though they don't belong to a full set of armor. Instead, you can add these to existing armor sets to slightly change up your available perks. So for example, you can switch out the chest piece of the Balahara set for the Chronodath mail, as both have the scaling prowess set bonus that triggers when 3 pieces are equipped. But since each individual piece also has a perk, you can now switch out the quick sheet buff from the Balahara armor for 2 levels of flinch free, while still retaining that set buff with 2 other pieces of Balahara gear. Later on, this flexibility matters less, as many armor pieces will come with a slot for decorations, allowing you to slot perks of your choice, although these need to be earned from high rank hunts. You'll also notice that every armor suddenly has an alpha and a beta version, a returning feature from previous entries. To quickly explain the difference between the two, generally speaking, alpha armor has more perks on the actual armor and less decoration slots, whereas beta has more slots for decorations but less actual perks on the armor. So my advice is to focus on getting some solid alpha sets first as you work through the end game, and by the time you have gathered the decorations that you want for your playstyle, craft a high level beta armor so you can min-max and optimize your build. If you find yourself using a specific consumable item a lot, you also want to make sure you turn on autocraft. You can toggle this on or off per item, and if it's on, you will immediately craft an item once you have the required resources in your inventory. By default, it is on for things like potions, but if you're playing a bogan for example, you might also want to turn it on for certain types of elemental ammo. You do want to check if the item you're crafting does not consume resources you might want to use for other items as well, as that is the main reason this feature isn't on by default for every item. Oh, and if you're looking for a specific resource, you can use the filter feature on your map by opening it, pressing right on the D-pad twice, and then selecting the resource you want to find. After finishing the campaign and entering high rank, there's actually another useful feature if you want to hunt for specific resources, and that's the environment overview. Simply press square with the map open to show a list of all monsters currently in the area. But by pressing the left shoulder button, you access a timetable which has even more useful info. It shows monsters that will be coming to the region soon, but it also shows the timing for upsurges in various resources or endemic life, during which they will appear more often. Now in the game, there are also monsters that can inflict you with status effects, and to counter those, you want to use the quick select wheel, accessed by holding L1 or LB. New for Wilds is the option to auto select an optimal status requirement recovery item, where the game automatically selects which item you need to cure your current ailment. This is much quicker than looking for the item in your item bar, and if you want more control, you can of course set up your own custom item wheels by selecting customize radial menu at any tent. You can have up to 8 different ones that you can swap between by holding L1 or LB and using the D-pad, and while the default selections are already pretty nice, there are some improvements we can make. You at least want to make sure you slot your whetstone in whatever radial wheel you are using. If you select this item the regular way by pressing square or X, you will stow your weapon before drawing it back out to sharpen it. But by selecting the whetstone via a radial menu, you don't stow your weapon and immediately begin sharpening. Another smart addition is the pause game feature, as the game's actual menu only pauses the game once you select the option that stops the action from there. And if you're planning to do a lot of hunting with others, or like calling help with an SOS flare, I would also recommend binding the signal command and some useful messages to another radial menu. Signal allows you to ping your location on the map, making it easy for others to find your location, and short messages like hang on a minute or let's capture this thing can quickly help you communicate without using a mic. Let me know your best tips for Monster Hunter in the comments, subscribe to not miss our next Wilds video, and leave a like if you enjoyed this one. If you want, you can watch our previous video with even more Monster Hunter tips, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!